My name is Linda Barrett, and I never thought I'd find myself applying for a live-in housekeeping job off Craigslist in my 50s. But after everything that happened last year, I was barely keeping my head above water. I used to manage the front desk at a Holiday Inn near Cincinnati, Ohio. Nothing fancy, but it was steady work. Then came the layoffs. Corporate restructuring, they said. A month later, my mother passed, and I was left alone with an empty apartment and a box of her prescriptions I didn't want to look at. Savings dwindled fast. My lease was up. I couldn't afford another month. The shelters were full, and motels were too expensive for anything long-term. So I did what desperate people do. I went online. The Craigslist ad was short and strange. Live-in housekeeper needed. Private estate in rural West Virginia. Room and board provided. Must be discreet and independent. No pets, no smoking. Start immediately. It didn't even list pay, but something about the wording felt serious. Not like the dozens of scams I'd already sifted through. It also included a contact email and a brief note. Interviews by phone. Position under the direction of Mr. Edward Granger, estate caretaker. It wasn't ideal, but what choice did I have? I sent a message. A reply came within an hour. A man named Mr. Granger asked to schedule a phone interview that evening. He had a voice like sandpaper, rough, deliberate. He asked practical questions. Could I clean? Was I comfortable living without cell service? Could I keep to myself? I answered yes to all of it. I didn't care about the isolation. At that point in my life, silence sounded like a blessing. He offered me the job on the spot. I was to arrive 2 days later. He emailed me a list of directions. No GPS, just written steps off the interstate, ending at a long gravel road outside a town I'd never heard of. Maple Hollow, West Virginia. The day I left, I packed everything I owned into the trunk of my old Toyota Corolla. Just before I left the city, I bought a prepaid flip phone because Mr. Granger had warned me the estate had no service. There's a landline if needed, he said, but you won't need it often. I arrived late in the afternoon. The road narrowed into forest, thick with evergreens and fog that rolled like it had a mind of its own. My car groaned as I climbed the last stretch of gravel before a wrought iron gate came into view, set between two moss-covered stone pillars. As if it had been expecting me, the gate creaked open on its own. The estate sat beyond a clearing, a massive colonial-style mansion. White paint faded to gray, tall windows shuttered against the wind. Behind it, the Blue Ridge Mountains loomed like a painting too real to be trusted. Waiting on the front steps was a tall man in a dark coat and gloves, posture straight as a beam. His silver hair was cropped short, and his eyes were hidden behind tinted glasses even though the sun was fading. "You must be Ms. Barrett," he said. "I'm Edward Granger. Welcome to Black Pine Estate." He didn't offer to shake my hand, just turned and led me up the steps and into the house. The interior was odd. Not dusty or abandoned like I half expected. No, it was clean. Too clean. Like a museum no one ever touched. Thick carpets, ornate furniture, walls lined with old portraits of grim-looking men and women in stiff collars. The place smelled faintly of lemon polish and something older, dry wood and paper. "This way," Mr. Granger said, leading me through a narrow corridor past a locked double door he didn't mention, then out to a side path that led around the back of the house. We came to a smaller cottage tucked among the trees. Brick exterior, one window lit by a dim bulb. A metal chimney poked up through the shingle roof. "This is your residence. You'll find it stocked with linens and food. If you need anything, use the landline. Dial 9 to reach the main house." "Who else lives here?" I asked. He paused. "The master of the estate, Mr. Alden Royce. You won't see much of him. He values his privacy. You may be asked to clean certain areas of the main house, but only under supervision. Do not enter the west wing. Do not approach Mr. Royce unless summoned." It was all said so matter of fact, I barely registered the warning tone. "I understand," I replied. "Good," he said. "Start tomorrow, 6 a.m. sharp." Then he left me alone. The cottage wasn't bad. Dated but functional. A small kitchen, twin bed, full bathroom, and a rotary landline bolted to the wall like it hadn't been touched since 1975. I unpacked, reheated some canned soup, and tried to sleep. That night, I lay awake for hours. There was something about the silence that didn't sit right. It wasn't peaceful. It was oppressive, like the trees outside were listening. At one point, around 2 a.m., I heard it, a faint tapping on the glass of my bedroom window. I pulled back the curtain fast. Nothing, just darkness and pines swaying in the wind. I told myself it was a branch, a squirrel, my imagination. I didn't fall asleep until near dawn. By the end of my first full day, I had to admit, whatever else the job might be, it wasn't difficult. The routine was clear. Clean the east wing, launder linens, wipe down the front hall, dust the piano in the drawing room. Always the same rooms, always under Granger's watchful eye. He never lingered, never explained why certain doors were locked or why I wasn't allowed near the west wing. The mansion felt suspended in time. There were no televisions, no radios, just the hum of old radiators and the occasional creak of wood expanding in the cold. The only other person I ever saw was Mr. Granger. As for Mr. Alden Royce, the estate's reclusive owner, I never caught so much as a glimpse. I assumed he was elderly or bedridden, maybe even gone altogether, and this whole arrangement was some kind of cover for long-abandoned wealth. But the groceries were fresh, the power stayed on, someone was paying the bills, and someone else was watching me. The second night it happened again, tapping at the window. 3 slow knocks, deliberate, like fingernails. I jumped from bed, heart racing, and threw the curtain open. Again, no one. But this time, I noticed something, a faint smudge on the outside of the glass, like the residue from an oily handprint. I didn't sleep after that. The days passed in strange rhythm. Every morning, I'd wake at dawn and cross the path to the main house. Granger would already be inside, waiting, checking a small pocket notebook like he was keeping score. "You missed a streak on the banister," he told me once. "Mr. Royce notices these things." I never argued. I just scrubbed harder. One afternoon, I worked up the courage to ask, "Does Mr. Royce ever come downstairs?" Granger didn't look up from his notes. "Not unless absolutely necessary." "Is he ill?" His eyes flicked to mine, just briefly. "He has sensitivities. The noise of the world, movement, smell. He prefers solitude." "Does he know who I am?" "He approved your application. That's all that matters." Something about his tone chilled me. That night, I kept the lights on in the cottage. On my 5th night, the sounds changed. Not just tapping, but whimpering. At first, I thought it was an animal caught in the woods, but it was too human. Faint sobbing, muffled, like someone crying through a wall. I pressed my ear to the floor. It was louder down there. And then I heard it, a voice, just one word. "Please." The next morning, I tried to tell Granger. He cut me off. "This house is old. It groans. Wind whips through the valleys. Animals wander the woods. Do not let your mind entertain foolishness." He stared at me hard. "This is a respectable post, Ms. Barrett. People like you don't often get second chances." I left without another word. But that night, the crying returned. And it wasn't outside. It was coming from underneath my floor. I couldn't ignore it anymore. At 2:27 a.m., I got out of bed, pulled on my boots, and slid the area rug aside. The wooden floor beneath was scuffed, but 3 planks near the far wall looked different, slightly warped, as if they'd been lifted and put back down. My hands shook as I wedged a butter knife into the seam. It took effort, but the plank finally came free. Beneath it, a musty layer of cloth, white fabric, stained dark in places. I peeled it back and screamed. A face stared up at me, lifeless eyes sunk deep into leathery skin. A woman, middle-aged. Her hands were bound, her mouth sealed with old duct tape. She'd been under there a long time. I stumbled back and vomited into the sink. Then I ran to the landline and dialed 9. No answer. I tried 911. The line was dead. I sat in the corner of the room until sunrise, shaking. When Granger came to retrieve me that morning, I didn't let him in. I just yelled through the door, "There's a dead woman buried under my floor." He didn't respond immediately. Then, calm as always, he said, "Ms. Barrett, I need you to unlock the door. I'm calling the police. There's no signal here," he said, "but don't worry, I'll call them myself." Then I heard the sound of his footsteps retreating. 5 minutes later, sirens. 2 sheriff's deputies arrived less than 10 minutes after Granger's so-called call, which still baffled me. The landline hadn't worked when I tried it. No cell service, no radio, but somehow he summoned help instantly, almost too conveniently. The deputies, both local men in khaki jackets, entered the cottage carefully. I pointed to the floor. By then I'd covered the body back up. I couldn't stand to look at it again. They didn't ask too many questions at first. They were calm, professional, but I caught that look in one of their eyes, the kind people get when something's worse than they expected. The taller one, Deputy Rogers, peeled the fabric back again and cursed under his breath. "Jesus," he muttered. "That's a body, all right." "Do you know who she is?" I asked. They didn't answer right away. They made a few calls on their radios. Somehow theirs worked just fine, and then asked me to stay put while they went to speak with Mr. Granger. I never saw him again. By noon, detectives arrived, forensics, a coroner's van. They brought me hot coffee and a blanket and asked if I could give a statement. I told them everything, how I got the job, what I'd heard, what I'd found. When I described the woman's face, one of the techs stopped what he was doing and looked over. "You say she was wrapped in white cloth?" he asked. "Under the floorboards, yes." He nodded slowly. "That matches the report." "What report?" "The woman's name was Rachel Whitmore. She was reported missing 6 months ago. Used to work here, same job as you, same quarters, same everything." I felt like the ground had dropped out from under me. Over the next few days, more details emerged. The police questioned Mr. Granger extensively, but according to the report I later read, he claimed complete ignorance. Said Rachel disappeared overnight. No sign of struggle, no note. He assumed she'd left. He never reported it. Said he thought she just couldn't handle the solitude. But it didn't add up, especially not when they found the tape and zip ties, and the bruising on her neck. She'd been strangled, the coroner confirmed. So who killed her? At first, suspicion fell on Granger, but he had what the police called plausible deniability. No prints on the bindings, no direct evidence tying him to the murder. But then the twist came. The investigation uncovered security footage, old analog tapes, dusty and grainy. One showed a man entering Rachel's quarters late one night, wearing a dark coat and gloves. His face wasn't clearly visible, but his height, his walk. It wasn't Granger. It was Mr. Alden Royce. I was stunned. But I thought he never left the West Wing. "He did that night," the detective said, "and we think it wasn't the first time." Turns out, Royce had a history. Not criminal convictions, but accusations. A housekeeper in Maryland had filed a restraining order years prior. Another in Pennsylvania had gone missing, never solved. All linked to the same man, always using aliases, always hiring through Craigslist or word of mouth, always remote estates with little oversight. He was a serial predator, hidden behind a wall of wealth, privacy, and silence. The scariest part? I'd never even seen his face. They issued a warrant, but by the time authorities entered the West Wing of the mansion, Royce was gone. His room was empty. His belongings, sparse and carefully curated, no fingerprints, just a single note on the bed, handwritten in looping script. "I told you she'd be a problem." No one saw him leave. No vehicles on the cameras, no witnesses on the road. It was like he vanished into the forest. I left Black Pine Estate the next day. They offered to put me in witness protection. I declined. I didn't need a new name, just a new start. I live in a small apartment now, back near Cincinnati. Nothing fancy, just quiet. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, certain I hear tapping at the window again. But it's always the wind. I don't use Craigslist anymore. And I never ever take a job that requires me to live on site. Because no matter how desperate you are, some houses don't want to be lived in. And some men know exactly how to make you disappear inside them. My name is Claire Monroe, and I used to think I was pretty good at reading people. I live alone in a small apartment complex on the edge of Asheville, North Carolina. It's not a fancy place, but it's clean, quiet, and feels safe. Until that night. I had just upgraded my car, a big deal for me, and needed to sell my old one to make up the down payment. It was a 2012 Subaru Outback, silver, with over 160,000 miles, but still ran fine. I'd taken care of it. Oil changes on time, new tires, no accidents. I listed it on Craigslist for $400–500. I got the usual lowballers, vague texts, and people asking if I'd trade it for a dirt bike or a gaming console. But then, a guy named Kevin messaged me. "Hey, saw your Outback for sale. Still available?" I replied yes, and we started texting. He was polite, clear, and didn't try to haggle. Said he worked late but could come by the next evening around 8:30. I hesitated for a second. It was a bit late, but the meeting spot was just the apartment lot, right under the floodlights, and there were always people walking dogs or unloading groceries. It didn't seem risky, so I agreed. The next night, he pulled in at 8:37 on the dot, in a dark gray Chevy Malibu with tinted windows. He parked a few spaces over and stepped out with a casual wave. He looked to be mid-30s, about 6 feet tall, wearing jeans, boots, and a brown work jacket. Clean-shaven, short black hair, average-looking, nothing immediately threatening. "You Claire?" he asked. "Yep, Kevin." "Yeah, thanks for waiting." He walked around the Subaru, inspecting the body, checking the tires. Then he smiled a little. "Looks solid. Mind if we take it for a spin?" I agreed, with the usual, "I'll come with you" disclaimer. He didn't object. We got in. He adjusted the seat, turned the key, and we pulled out of the lot. The drive was uneventful at first. He took a loop around the neighborhood, nothing aggressive, asked about the brakes, the alignment, how it handled in snow. I gave honest answers. Everything felt normal, until the questions shifted. "So, this your car from new?" "No, I bought it used a few years ago." "Nice. You live here alone?" The way he asked that made my shoulders tense. "Why?" He chuckled. "Oh, just wondering. Always risky to meet strangers alone, you know?" "Yeah, I'm careful." He didn't say anything after that for a beat, just kept driving. Then, casually, "You got roommates? Husband? Boyfriend?" I smiled tightly. "Nope, just me and my pepper spray." He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. Something in the air changed. The silence got heavier. I stopped answering his questions after that. We circled back and returned to the lot. He parked exactly where he had before. I got out quickly and waited while he followed. He stood beside the car, hands in pockets. "I like it," he said. "Just need to think on it overnight." "Sure," I said, relieved. "Let me know." As I turned to leave, he called out, "Hey, do you mind if I use your bathroom real quick before I head out? I've been driving since work." I stopped cold. He said it like it was no big deal, like we were old friends. "Sorry," I said. "I don't let strangers into my place." There was a long pause. His eyes stayed on mine, the fake friendliness wiped from his face. Then he nodded. "All right, no problem." I walked away, but I didn't go through the side door like usual. I circled the complex to the front entrance, heart thudding. I didn't know why, but every instinct told me something was off. I scanned behind me. He wasn't there. Inside, I took the elevator up to the 3rd floor. The hallway was quiet. As I turned left toward my unit, I heard something behind me. The stairwell door creaked open. I turned. It was Kevin. For half a second, I tried to convince myself it wasn't him. Maybe just a neighbor. Maybe someone who looked like him. But no. Same jacket, same walk, same expressionless stare. It was Kevin, and he wasn't pretending anymore. He didn't speak, didn't smile. Just stepped through the door and started walking toward me. Not fast. Deliberate. I didn't wait to find out what he wanted. I turned and walked, quick, measured steps toward my apartment door at the far end of the hall. I didn't want to run. Not yet. If I could just get inside, lock the door, I'd be okay. But I didn't hear his steps stop. I heard them speed up. I ran. My keys fumbled in my hand as I reached the door. I dropped them once, cursed, snatched them back up. He was halfway down the hallway now, his steps pounding against the floor like a drumbeat. I jammed the key into the lock, twisted and flung the door open, slammed it shut, locked the deadbolt, the handle, and the chain. Then I backed away, chest heaving. Silence. I waited, holding my breath. Nothing. Then a soft knock. 1, 2, 3, not pounding, just polite. Like he was still pretending. Like we were still playing this stupid little Craigslist game. I didn't go to the peephole. I didn't want to see his face. I grabbed my phone and called 911. My voice was shaking. "There's a man who followed me into my building. I think he was pretending to buy my car. He's outside my apartment right now." The dispatcher stayed calm, asked my address, told me to stay put. Officers were en route. I stayed on the line. The knocking stopped after a minute and I couldn't hear footsteps anymore, but I also didn't hear the stairwell door close. When the dispatcher asked if he was still there, I finally got up the nerve to peek through the peephole. He was gone. 5 minutes later, 2 officers arrived. They checked the hallway, the stairwell, the parking lot. Nothing. Kevin was gone. So was the Chevy Malibu. I gave them everything. His first name, phone number, car description, the Craigslist messages. Turns out the number was a burner. The texts came from a disposable app. The license plate, temporary tags, likely fake. "He wasn't here to buy anything," the officer said. "You're lucky you didn't let him inside." I nodded, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. They filed a report, gave me their card, told me to call if I remembered anything else. That night, I slept with the lights on and a kitchen knife by the bed. But sleep never really came. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called out of work. I told my manager I was sick, and she didn't question it. Maybe she could hear it in my voice. I spent most of the day sitting on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes, watching the hallway camera feed through the apartment's barely functional security app. Every time someone passed by, I jumped. Every sound in the hallway made me flinch. I didn't want to admit it, but I was scared to leave my own home. The officers had told me the usual, "We'll keep an eye out. Let us know if he contacts you again. Be careful." But the reality is, unless he tried again, there was nothing they could do, and he wasn't going to try again. He'd gotten what he needed. That night, I went back through our Craigslist messages, this time with fresh eyes. It was all there. The polite opening line, the quick agreement to meet, the late-night timing, the sudden shift in tone after I told him I lived alone. He'd been profiling me. Not just interested in the car, he was interested in me. He didn't ask about maintenance records or accident history. He never even opened the glove box during the test drive. He didn't talk about price. He never once looked under the hood. But he asked where I lived, who I lived with, if I had anyone else around. He was never here to buy a Subaru. He was here to choose a target. I moved 3 weeks later. I broke my lease early, ate the penalty, and found a place across town in a complex with 24-hour security, a locked gate, and a front office that actually cares. I listed my Subaru again, but this time on a site that requires ID verification, and I only agreed to meet buyers in the parking lot of the police station. Even then, my hands shook the whole time. I never heard from Kevin again. Sometimes I wonder if he tried it on someone else. Maybe someone who didn't have the instincts I did. Maybe someone who opened the door. Maybe someone who didn't make it to the lock in time. There are no headlines, no arrests, no follow-up. Just the quiet, nagging knowledge that he's still out there, watching, waiting, pretending to be interested in a couch or a bike or an old car. Back in 2019, I was 19 and freshly out of high school, taking a gap year before college. Money was tight, and I didn't want to keep asking my parents for help. So I started looking for odd jobs, pet sitting, house cleaning, whatever I could find. One afternoon, I was scrolling Craigslist and saw a post titled, "Urgent, babysitter needed for 5-year-old girl, weekends only, good pay." It caught my eye. The ad sounded normal enough, Single dad, full custody, needed someone to watch his daughter Saturdays and Sundays while he worked overtime at the paper mill. $150 per day, cash. The name listed was Thomas K., and the tone of the ad was almost too sweet. My daughter is very shy but warms up fast. We've had trouble trusting new people after my wife passed, so please be gentle with us. There were a few typos, odd spacing, and random capital letters like "she's a little angel." But I figured maybe he was just older, not tech-savvy. I emailed him back with my name, age, experience, and availability. He responded 2 hours later. "You sound perfect. I like that you have experience. Can we meet first before you start?" He wanted to meet at a local diner just off the interstate in Franklin, Tennessee the next morning. I agreed. It felt public enough to be safe. When I walked into the diner, he was already there, sitting in a booth by the window, drinking black coffee. He looked to be in his early 50s, wearing a button-up shirt tucked into faded jeans. Clean cut, but something about him didn't sit right. He stood up quickly and extended his hand. "You must be Ellie. Thanks for coming." He smiled too much, too wide. His handshake was oddly long. We sat down. He didn't ask much about my experience. Instead, he talked, non-stop, about how hard it's been being a single dad, how nobody wants to help anymore, and how young women just don't have that nurturing instinct these days. I asked what his daughter's name was. "Anna," he said quickly. "Anna Grace. She's 5, just turned 5. Or maybe she's 6 now, I forget." He chuckled like it was no big deal. I forced a laugh, but red flags were going up. Then he leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "We don't usually bring people into our home right away, but you seem kind, real kind. Maybe you'd like to come by this afternoon, just to meet her. She gets scared around strangers, but I think she'd like you." That made my stomach tighten. I asked if Anna would be joining us at the diner today, and he shook his head. No, she's with my sister. But we can swing by and pick her up real quick. You can ride with me." "Yeah, no. I told him I had an appointment after this, but I'd be happy to come by another time, maybe with my roommate along." That's when his face shifted just slightly. The smile faded for a split second. No, that's okay. If you're not serious, it's fine. I thought you were, but maybe I was wrong." I tried to salvage it, told him I was serious but just had safety rules. He nodded politely, but something had turned. The rest of the meeting was rushed. He paid the check and stood up before I could even finish my coffee. That evening, I got a message from him. "You're not who I thought. Anna needs better. Good luck finding work." No punctuation, no warmth this time. Then a few minutes later, "Don't worry. Another girl already wants the job. She's nicer." I didn't reply, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I hadn't just dodged an awkward dad. I'd dodged something dangerous. I didn't plan to respond to him again. I had a weird feeling in my gut, and that feeling only got stronger the next morning when I checked my phone. He had sent me 4 more messages overnight. The first one was simple. "I just wanted to say sorry. I didn't mean to upset you." Okay, fair enough. But then, "You looked really nice yesterday, real natural. Anna would have liked you." And a few minutes later, "You don't have to babysit. Maybe we could just talk sometime. I don't have a lot of friends." That one made my stomach flip. And finally, "I saw you had a blue backpack. Do you go to Franklin Tech? My niece goes there too. Small world." I hadn't told him I went to Franklin Tech. I never mentioned it. I had that exact backpack with me at the diner, but I had never taken it off my shoulder, not once. That's when I realized he had followed me, either after the diner or maybe even before. I blocked the email right then, deleted the thread, but I was shaken. That night I told my roommate Maddie everything. She immediately said I should report it, but I didn't know what to report. He hadn't done anything illegal, just creepy. The next day I decided to search for the ad again, to see if it was still up. It was gone. But in its place I found 2 similar ads, different titles, but nearly identical wording. Weekend babysitter needed. Sweet girl needs a gentle soul. Single father seeking trustworthy. Young woman for childcare. Cash paid. Both used the phrase, "she's had trouble trusting strangers," and "we're just a quiet little family." Both listed different names. One said Raymond, the other Jack. I had a sick feeling. I knew it was him. Same cadence, same weird grammar, same emotionally manipulative tone. This wasn't some grieving dad looking for help. This was a guy casting bait. Out of curiosity and maybe stupidity, I created a new Craigslist email just to test something. I messaged both listings pretending to be interested. One replied within the hour. "Hello, you sound perfect. Can we meet first? Coffee or diner?" I asked what his daughter's name was. "Anna Grace." Exactly the same. I didn't reply. I just sat at my desk, staring at the screen, pulse pounding in my ears. The worst part? The ad stayed up for 2 more days. Then it disappeared. Who knows how many other girls responded before it was taken down? I felt sick thinking about it. It wasn't just a near miss. It was a pattern. A few nights later, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the messages in my head, especially the part where he mentioned my backpack. It felt like he had been watching me longer than I realized. That's when I decided to go digging. I searched Reddit, Facebook babysitting groups, local forums, anywhere people might share Craigslist horror stories. I typed in babysitting Craigslist Tennessee and variations of that. And then, on a thread buried deep in a forum called cityhelpers.net, I found a post from a girl named Rachel, dated just 2 weeks earlier. Anyone ever get a weird vibe from a guy named Thomas K. on Craigslist? He said he needed a sitter for his 5-year-old daughter. I met him at a diner, and he wouldn't stop asking if I lived alone. Felt super off. I bailed. I felt my heart drop. I messaged her right away. Rachel replied a day later, confirming it was the same guy, same diner, same line about his shy daughter. Only difference? He told her the kid's name was Emily, not Anna, and then she said something that still sends chills down my spine. After I blocked him, I saw a new post 2 days later, same format, but he called himself Mark this time. That's when I knew. He was cycling names, stories, and ads over and over. I decided to post my own warning on Reddit. To my surprise, 3 other women commented within a day. One said he asked her to come inside his car for the interview. Another said he texted her late at night after she declined, saying, "I saw you leave, you looked nervous." One even said he followed her to her car after a meetup, then acted like it was a coincidence. None of us had called the police, because what would we say? A guy was creepy, but didn't technically do anything? That's the problem with people like him. They live in the gray zone, the part of the law where it's not illegal to be unsettling, not illegal to lie about having a daughter, not illegal to post ads under fake names, but it's enough to traumatize you. I'd just moved to Portland, Oregon, after a bad breakup and a layoff, so to say I was down on my luck was an understatement. I rented a tiny 1-bedroom apartment on the east side, barely furnished with an air mattress and a folding chair. Money was tight, and I figured Craigslist would be my best bet to score some free furniture. One evening, while browsing the free section, I stumbled on a post that caught my eye. "Free couch, must take tonight." In good condition, light brown, no stains, no bugs, U-Haul, Southeast 76th and Taylor, back alley, first come, first served. No pictures, no contact info, just an address and urgency. It sounded a little sketchy, but I was desperate and it wasn't that far, only about 10 minutes by car. I figured, what's the worst that could happen? I grabbed a flashlight, threw on my hoodie, and drove over. It was around 9:30 p.m. when I pulled into the alley behind the address listed. The streetlights were sparse, and the alley was long, flanked by tall, narrow houses with fences covered in ivy. My headlights caught a glimpse of a brown couch sitting just outside a garage door, slightly illuminated like a spotlight had been left on just for me. It actually looked decent. Not torn, not dirty, a little dated maybe, but way better than the floor. I got out and circled it with my flashlight. No bugs, no smell. The cushions were firm. Honestly, I felt lucky, like I'd beaten Craigslist at its own game. I popped my trunk and started folding down the back seats so I could wedge it in. That's when I noticed something odd. There were no tire tracks, no footprints around the couch, and the dust on the garage door behind it looked undisturbed, as if it hadn't been opened in years. I brushed the thought aside. Maybe someone just dropped it off minutes ago and drove off. But as I grabbed one end of the couch to start lifting, I heard it. A soft scraping noise. Not from behind me, from inside the couch. I froze. At first I thought maybe I imagined it. The wind. A branch. My nerves. But then I heard it again. Skrrr. A slow, dragging sound, like something shifting or crawling. I stepped back, heart pounding, and pointed my flashlight at the couch. It looked normal, silent, still. I tapped the side with my foot. Nothing. I leaned in and unzipped one of the cushions. Just foam. But the sound, it had come from inside. Now that I was paying attention, I noticed the couch seemed oddly heavy. Not like it had metal in it or anything, but like it was weighted down. Dead weight. I put both hands on the backrest and gave it a hard push. It didn't budge. I stepped around to the front, gripped under the frame, and tried to lift. That's when I saw it. Tucked underneath the couch, barely visible, was a small piece of cloth. Deep red, almost black, like dried blood. It looked like it was caught between the cushions and the frame, maybe even sewn into it. I crouched down and tugged. It didn't come loose. It was part of something deeper inside the couch. And then the smell hit me. It was faint, but unmistakable. Rot. The sickly sweet stench of something long dead. I dropped the fabric and stumbled back, adrenaline crashing through me like a wave. My brain fought to rationalize it. Maybe an animal crawled inside and died. Maybe someone stuffed old meat or garbage in it as a joke. But then I saw the stitching. Someone had restitched the couch. Not professionally. Messy, uneven thread ran along the underside, just out of sight, like someone had cut it open and then closed it back up. My skin went cold. I backed away slowly, flashlight shaking in my hand. Then I heard it again. Skrrk. But this time, it wasn't coming from the couch. It was coming from behind me. I spun around and pointed my flashlight toward the end of the alley. There was a man standing in the shadows, half concealed by an overgrown fence. I hadn't heard him approach. He wasn't moving, just watching me. My throat tightened. "Hey, this your couch?" I called out, trying to sound calm. No response. He was tall and wiry, maybe mid-40s, with a gray hoodie and dark pants. I couldn't see his face. The beam of my flashlight only caught the lower half of his body, and it wasn't moving. Not even a twitch. I don't want any trouble," I said. "I'll leave." Still nothing. I started backing toward my car, never taking my eyes off him. That's when he took one step forward. I bolted, slammed the car door, locked it, and hit reverse so hard I nearly crashed into a trash bin. I didn't stop to see if he followed. I drove straight home, heart pounding, hands shaking. I didn't sleep that night. The next day I checked the Craigslist post again. It was gone. Not marked as taken, not flagged, just completely vanished. I considered reporting it, but what could I say? Hey, I tried to take a free couch and smelled something dead and saw a creepy guy watching me. It wasn't exactly actionable, but I couldn't shake the image of that red cloth, or the stitched-up bottom, or the weight that didn't belong. A few days later, I saw a news headline that made my blood run cold. Body found stuffed in couch, dumped in Southeast Portland Alley. No suspect, no witnesses. I never told anyone I'd been there. To this day, I still think about what would have happened if I'd loaded that couch into my car. And every time I scroll Craigslist, I remind myself, if it's too good to be true, it probably belongs to someone who never made it out. My name's Matt Turner, and before all this happened, I used to think Craigslist was harmless. A place to score cheap furniture or unload old electronics. Nothing dangerous, just a website. That changed 3 months ago. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona, in a quiet cul-de-sac where nothing ever really happens. I work from home doing graphic design, so I'm home most days, alone, headphones on, locked into work. One afternoon, my garage door started acting up. The motor groaned, the track jerked, and then it just froze halfway. I called around, but local repair companies wanted ridiculous money just to show up, $300 or more for a simple visit. So I did something I now regret. I posted on Craigslist. Garage door not opening fully. Need repair ASAP. Will pay cash. I got a reply within an hour. A guy named Eddie messaged me. Said he used to work for a big repair company but now did jobs on his own. His rate? $101 flat. Said he could swing by the next day at 2 p.m. Sounded like a lifesaver at the time. Right on schedule, Eddie pulled up in an unmarked white van. He wore dusty jeans, work boots, and a green t-shirt with a faded stitched patch that read, Eddie. Looked like he was in his early 50s, broad-shouldered, thinning hair, friendly enough. We shook hands. He asked to see the garage. Inside, he got to work immediately, inspecting the motor, checking the track. He sounded legit, too, muttering about how old liftmasters always gave out early and how most companies rob you blind for simple fixes. At some point, he asked, So you live here alone? That threw me off. Why? He chuckled. Just curious. Must be nice, peaceful, no kids running around. I mumbled something vague and kept my guard up. That question didn't sit right with me. He said he needed a part from his van, stepped out for 5 minutes, then returned with a red toolbox. He worked for another 10 minutes and declared it fixed. Sure enough, the door opened smooth as butter. He handed me a handwritten invoice. No business name, no phone number, just garage door recalibration. Paid Eddie. I handed him the $100 cash and walked him out. But as he got into his van, I caught him looking, not at the garage, but at the side of my house. He smiled, not a friendly smile, just knowing. That night, I couldn't sleep. At around 2:30 a.m., I went to get a glass of water. That's when I noticed it. The garage light was on. And I never leave that light on. I crept over. The door connecting the garage to the house was unlocked. I stepped into the garage, gripping a flashlight like a weapon. Nobody there. But in the corner, behind the water heater, I found something. A work glove. Torn, dirty, the same kind Eddie wore. The next day, I called the police. They sent a patrol officer who shrugged, took a report, and told me to let them know if anything else happened. That was it. I didn't feel safe. So I set up a motion-activated camera in the driveway and another inside near the garage entrance. For 2 nights, nothing happened. But on the 3rd night, around 3 a.m., I heard something again. This time, it was a soft click. The unmistakable sound of my backsliding door unlocking. My body froze. I grabbed the bat by my bed and crept through the dark hall. When I reached the kitchen, I flicked on the lights and Eddie was standing on the other side of the sliding glass door. No mask, no weapon. Just standing there, staring in, not moving. His eyes blank, like he wasn't even seeing me. Just calculating. When I shouted, he didn't flinch, but he didn't leave either. I called 911 with shaking hands. As soon as I turned back to the door, he was gone. Police came, searched the area, found nothing. The footage from the driveway cam? Useless. Just showed a shadow flicker by. Too fast to ID. They filed another report. Said they'd increase patrols, but they couldn't do anything unless he broke in. I didn't sleep after that. I kept my bat close, double-locked everything, even blocked the back door with furniture. But I wasn't prepared for what happened next. 3 nights later, I was working late. Lights off, laptop glow lighting the room. I heard a loud pop, then black. Power cut. Before I could even react, I heard glass shatter in the back room. I ran, tried to make it to my phone in the kitchen, but I only made it 2 steps. That's when everything went black. I woke up hours later in the hospital. My face was bandaged. My ribs ached like hell. A dull throb pulsed in my skull. My friend Caleb was sitting beside me. He looked pale. "You're lucky," he said. "If I hadn't come by to drop off your spare keyboard, Man, you were out cold." He found me unconscious on the floor, blood pooling beneath my head. The back window had been shattered inward. My phone had been smashed. The motion camera near the garage was ripped off the wall. The cops said I'd been hit from behind with a blunt object, probably a hammer. My laptop, wallet, and watch were gone. But they said the break-in wasn't just about theft. It looks personal, one of the detectives said. He knew where to find you, knew your layout, your habits. After I was discharged, I stayed with Caleb for 2 weeks. I couldn't go back. Even stepping into a quiet room made me panic. Every little creak or pop in the walls triggered a rush of fear. They never caught Eddie. His Craigslist profile vanished. The number? A burner. The van? Never caught on camera. He was a phantom. I eventually moved to a different city, got a condo in a secured building with cameras and concierge. And I haven't hired anyone off Craigslist since. Even today, 3 months later, I still wake up from nightmares. Eddie's face through the glass, motionless, patient, not robbing, not vandalizing, hunting. And sometimes in the middle of the night, when I hear a creak in the hallway or the soft clink of metal on tile, I wonder, what if Caleb hadn't shown up? What if that night had gone on just 10 minutes longer? I keep the bat by my bed, but I also keep the glove he left behind, sealed in a plastic bag under my sock drawer, not as evidence. As a reminder, you never really know who you're letting in when you open your door. Sometimes the scariest part isn't what's lurking in the dark. It's what's waiting on the other end of a Craigslist reply. If tonight's stories gave you chills, make sure to leave a like to help more brave souls find their way to this channel. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you'll never miss another tale from the shadows. This is Mr. Rainy Night, reminding you, some doors are better left unopened. Good night, and stay safe out there.